Good afternoon, and welcome to episode 36 of the Ripper Podcast.
Look, I'm not saying you should play college football till you're 28 years old, but it does make for an entertaining story and a good quarterback.
What up? Welcome inside episode 48 of the Ripper Podcast. Elson is here with me. I'm Ethan Rose. So, Grazie, how's Tulsa treating you?
Midterm week is over. Now, the way it works down here, at least with my classes, midterms kind of start up for me again in about 2 weeks. So I should spend these next couple of weeks studying. Not going to do that. Just going to be enjoying the cold because it was like 35 degrees out this morning. That's
Really?
not something I thought I was signing up for. But what about Milwaukee? How are things up north?
It is quite chilly here, too, I must say. Today I did end up whipping out the shorts, partially because I don't have any pants clean. I've worn all mine, and I've procrastinated the laundry. I do plan on going home this weekend, so I'm hoping to maybe push that off until then so that I can not do it myself and have to spend $1.50 a load. Other than that, though, Milwaukee's been good. I guess you could consider midterm week next week for us. I technically only have one. I did have an exam earlier this week that you could consider as in a midterm, but it's not necessarily. So I'm very lucky compared to what I've heard your stories for the midterms, in that you have like a part A and a part B to your midterm season. So I'm thankful for what I got going. I will say architecture is more of a project based major compared to like sitting down taking written exams. So it's a little bit different, but freshman year architecture isn't all that detailed anyways. So I'm lucky compared to what you've been telling me all about.
You've got midterm day. I've got midterm month. So that's a win for you. But I also get free laundry. I think that kind of balances it out.
Yeah, there you go. It's you kind of got to figure it out because it's $150 a load, but then sometimes, especially like mainly the dryer, you can, like my reds and whites, I'm able to use about half a load, so I'm able to split them, and they get dried enough in that period, so I'm able to save $1.50 doing that. So that's always a good thing. But first time doing laundry here was a little bit of adjustment. I couldn't figure out how to pay for it and get money loaded to a card, and it's complicated stuff, but.
It was a learning curve for me, too. The first time I threw a load in the dryer, I went to pick it up, and it was still, like, soaking wet.
Yeah, I actually had to call my mom to figure it all out. I will admit that. But then also, I didn't realize it, but one of the washing machines had probably 6 inches of water in the bottom of it. And so I started throwing clothes in there, and I was like, wait a second, what's going on here? And my mom was on the phone. She said, yeah, I probably wouldn't use that one. Well, half my clothes were drenched because they've been sitting in water and probably someone else's dirty water. So they did get a nice cleaning and drying, and so that ended up going well. But yeah, it's fun time. It's fun time getting old. But there's a lot of other perks I think that go with it as well. But college life, tell me about it. Always a fun time. Today we got a fun one. We're going to start with some sports headlines, get into the last regular season week of high school football. Our newest segment, Ripper Hoops. We'll be talking some basketball, Bucks, stuff like that. College football, previewing another monster week in college football. Daily Draft is back this week as well. MLB playoff update, and wrapping it up with our Sunday picks of NFL football. Also, I'm pumped for this one. 48. With that being said, if we keep on pace, episode 50 would be a week from today. So half a, I don't know, what do they call 100? Century, I guess, but it's not.
I guess
years.
so.
But half 100, which is pretty crazy to think that we've been doing 50 episodes. That's pretty awesome. Super pumped about it all.
Here's the 50 more.
I forget. Were you a part of the first episode, or was that like the podcast we did a long time ago?
Oh, I don't know if I was on the first episode of the Ripper podcast, but yeah, I believe that our first foray into podcasting. Yes, I was a part of that.
Something that I don't even know if we were publishing it. We were just
I think they're still up on Spotify, which
are they?
Maybe they shouldn't be, but hey, those are the beginnings right there.
I forget what we even called it.
Was it MRG?
with Ryan. It might have been. I'm RG Sports. We might be able to. We might have to. You know what, Elson? I tell you what. Why don't you get into the sports headlines and I'll see if I can pull it up.
All right, so I guess headline number one is Devontae Adams was traded from the Raiders to the Jets at the behest of Aaron Rodgers, of course. The Raiders are going to get back a conditional third-round pick. I don't know exactly what the conditions are, but based on playing time and success, it could become as much as of a second. And then on the same day, yesterday, Amari Cooper traded from the Browns to the Bills. The Browns are going to get a third-round pick back for him and also a late-round pick swap. So two wide receiver bombshells taking place on the same day. What are your thoughts on Devontae to the Jets? Does this move the needle for them? Are they a contender now?
They've had a rough start. They've lost 3 in a row now. I think script writers like this move 100%, but I think it's not going to hurt them. I don't think adding another weapon, a guy like Garrett Wilson is going to benefit from this a lot. Mike Williams has talked about being possibly traded, which I think could happen in the next 24 hours. So, I don't think it'll hurt them, but I think it'll be something interesting as they continue to go about their season. I think a guy like Aaron Rodgers needs a little bit of help. I think out of all the seasons we've seen him play as he's gotten older, I think he's aged the most, which you can probably credit his Achilles injury from last year. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it can hurt them necessarily.
I think it's going to do a lot of good, and not just because you're moving from a tandem of Garrett Wilson and Allen Lazard, because Mike Williams, good player, easing back from injury, clearly has some chemistry challenges with Aaron Rodgers. So they were running Allen Lazard out there all the time. And now you've got Devontae along with Garrett Wilson. Devontae will play the X role. Garrett Wilson will be the Z. So that's nice. But I also think it does a lot of good for the way Rodgers wants to run that offense. He's been a chemistry guy all the way back to his Green Bay days, absolutely. And the connections he had on that offense just were not working. 2 games in a row ended with ugly interceptions based on Mike Williams in particular not being where he thought he was going to be. I think we could see that change, and the Jets have been close. The defense is really good. They've been hanging around in these games. I think they could go on a run, but we'll have to see. There's always something going on in that locker room as well.
Absolutely. It's an Aaron Rodgers show, and we've seen a lot of change, especially within the last week for that. But Elson, I did find the MRG Sports Talk Show on Spotify. Here it is. The MRG Sports Talk Show hosted by Ryan Madison. Here's the about. Elson Grass, Ethan Rosen, and Ryan Madison talk NFL and college football with other sports sprinkled in. Tune in for in-depth analysis of the previous week and more. Back in March of 2022 was our last recent episode talking about the NFL moving to Texas, Hawaii, or Ireland. And the yup. That was a big thing with Ryan. I don't know if you remember that, but big thing with Ryan with the yup from Storage Wars. I remember that was one.
Oh, now I remember it. I hadn't
Yeah,
thought about that since, I would
the
guess. What month was that in 2022?
yup. Yeah, early 2022 is when we started this. First episode in January. Wild Card Weekend. Kenneth Pickett versus Matthew Corral. Look at that.
Oh, I
Packers
remember.
trivia.
I don't remember that, but remember when we were having Kenny Pickett versus Matt Corral talks?
I mean, we had a lot of interesting talks, Elson. But there you go.
Who's better there anyway?
What's
Who'd
that?
you rather have, Pickett or Corral?
I think Pickett.
2
I
years
don't know
later.
if Corral's even in the NFL anymore.
Wasn't
I think
showing up to practices.
Yeah, he wasn't showing up. I think he's a UFL guy now, isn't he?
Sounds about right. I could
But
picture him in a UFL.
Pickett's still a backup somewhere, I believe. Oh, we got
Philly.
more episodes though. Oh, we did start in December though. Week 12 recap. So Thanksgiving. We started around Thanksgiving 3 years ago. Thanksgiving 3 years ago was the first start. There you go.
Humble beginnings, and look where we are now.
How about that? It'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to go back and listen to one of these, hear the quality, hear the pitch of our voice, and the quality of sports takes that we have on this show. But yeah, there you go. Always a fun topic there. But yeah, that'd be something that I'd be interested in going back to watching. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, there you go. What else do we got? A couple other trades in the NFL. Amari Cooper to the Bills. You're
I
saying
think
it's a
that's big for
twenty
them.
twenty five third round pick and then a late round pick swap. I didn't know the details about that. And that seems like the Browns got their money's worth in that.
I still think Amari Cooper is a great receiver. The athleticism looks okay to me. He's been dropping the ball a little bit, which has been an issue throughout his career, but maybe you go to a team with a much better quarterback, get some of that confidence back. Maybe that does move the needle for Buffalo. Because they really do need wideout help. I think that was a smart move.
Yeah, I mean I think the Cowboys picked him up for a first round pick when he was acquired by the Cowboys. Um from the Raiders, I do believe. And then he ended up moving to the Browns, I think, for a fifth round pick or sixth round pick. Something a late like a definitely a day 3 pick. But I think it was a fifth or sixth rounder. So Cowboys, in my opinion, kind of got fleeced in that situation, and the fact that now that his move to the Bills is a third round pick, seems like the Bills or the excuse me, the Browns got their money's worth. So that's kind of an interesting perspective, kind of seeing how it went from a first to a fifth to a third in that kind of a movement. Obviously the late round pick swap as well, but I think Amari Cooper is a fine quarterback or wide receiver. I think he's going to fit in well in Buffalo. He was a guy whose name was shopped around to multiple teams, including back to the Cowboys or to the Chiefs or to the Bills. And I think he's going to fit in well. I think Josh Allen will strive for it. Um, Fantasy football is kind of trying to make the determination of whether or not Khalil Shakir should stay on my team, and I think a guy like him will benefit from Amari Cooper coming. We kind of talked about it like Garrett Wilson benefiting from Devontae Adams. So I'm here for it. I think it's a good move. And the Bills are just going to continue to get better and better, I think. So we did have another trade, though, Elson, in the NFL as well. Cam Akers to the Vikings. I'm not
Oh,
sure
I didn't hear about it.
that's not a, high level trade like any of these star wide receivers, but a couple moves starting to move around the NFL.
Heating up before the deadline.
Yeah, absolutely. A guy who anticipates not being active at the deadline, Jerry Jones. Um, he's a fun guy to talk about, isn't he? He's a potential guest on the show, maybe if he wants to rip us apart. I mean, I would take his ripping apart if he wanted to join the show. I mean, I would take it.
I would take that too. That would be hilarious.
Yeah, that'd be something, isn't it? But he rips apart a local radio host about the questions they're asking. Obviously, I feel like any question and that would make Jerry Jones mad is a respectable question at this point in his football career. Um, but Jerry Jones said that they don't plan to make any moves in terms of the coaching staff or at the trade deadline, referring to the issues just need to be made up in the practice, which is always an interesting topic. I think the Cowboys are at this point a better team than what people give them credit for. Obviously, injuries have ridiculed our season to this point with big games. We kind of saw that happen against the Lions, but it was a pretty disappointing game. Give me a little PTSD compared from the Packers playoff game last year. Um, but I would say uh, Jerry Jones, I would say that, I do think one of the issues was not making a move in the offseason, and we're going to continue to not make a move here come the trade deadline. Maybe Jerry Jones thinks that the Cowboys aren't very good, and so he doesn't want to trade away valuable draft capital, early picks in rounds. I don't know, but I do think that I mean we're still 3-3, and I do think some sort of move, especially with the amount of injuries, going out and getting a veteran guy. I don't think it would hurt at all, especially adding a receiver. Brandon Cooks being out, I think CeeDee Lamb's getting the brunt of the double coverage and the secondary's focus, and so I wouldn't hate seeing a receiver be added. But it's all speculation, and who knows? Maybe something does happen.
Ethan, I'm no Cowboys apologist, but I have to agree with you. I think that they're a little underestimated right now based on the sheer volume of the injuries. I mean, they're down Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. Then you add on Eric Kendricks and Deron Bland. They're playing with a group of backups on the defensive side of the
Yeah,
ball. Now, is it a good look for Jerry Jones to be doing Jerry Jones things? Save that kind of issue for the locker room, man. Your job is to be the bigger man, and he certainly didn't accomplish that. But hey, we all got a laugh out of it at least.
yeah. I mean, it's typical Jerry Jones. I think we're used to it at this point, especially these Cowboy fans are. It happens every year. He goes out and makes comments. ESPN, specifically Stephen A. Smith, they tend to to make meme out of that, and I was actually happy with the Devontae Adams trade. It kind of the Cowboys lost, so the ESPN, all the ESPN shows, their focus is the Dallas Cowboys and how they are the now officially the worst team, and everyone needs to get fired, and Dak Prescott is the worst quarterback in the NFL. The Devontae Adams trade relieved some of that conversation and allowed him to talk about something else. And so, like, as a Cowboy fan, it's kind of nice not to have to listen to that anymore. Um, but it's just one of those weeks. Cowboys lose by a lot. It was a disappointing loss. I talked about it on Monday about the importance of a bye week after a very difficult game. Um, I A lot of people saw it coming, to be honest. And I personally think, I mean, for every one of those bad games that we have, we're gonna have a game go the other way for us. And so, just kind of wait for that to happen, and we'll get healthy. This bye week's crucial for us. This bye week, Micah Parsons, Deron Bland, Eric Kendricks. I don't think Brandon Cooks will be quite back, but offensive line's now finally fully healthy. Like all those guys, they're gonna be coming back after this bye week. But we got our hands full coming out. We got 4 really tough matchups, and we'll see how we handle it. It'll be interesting. But
Never too late to defect.
yeah,
You
absolutely.
can always leave the fan base.
No, I don't. I don't think that's gonna
All
happen.
right,
But
you do this to yourself.
yeah, well, I do, but it's part of being a loyal fan. I think
It's
I would
true.
lose. I think I've lost enough credit and respect being a Cowboys fan, but I think I would lose more if I ditched my team, no matter who it
You're in
is.
too deep.
I think I'm in too deep, absolutely, and yeah, I would agree. Let's get to some Friday Night Lights Week 9 preview. Last week of the regular season in the college football world, which is always interesting. That means Saturday is the selection show, so we get to watch that and see what teams are going where. And I should remove that. But here we go. Game of the week: Belleville taking on Darlington. I don't think it's the biggest game of the week, but it is 2 area teams and a Belleville team who has gotten hot here in the second half of the season. They're 4-2 in conference. This is a good team, and they're coming in rolling. Obviously, Darlington rolling, coming after, though they did come off of a loss against Cuba City, losing the conference. So a bounce back game for them. I think Darlington gets the job done. Monroe clinched the Rock Valley Conference last week, so they play East Troy. And I don't know how important of a game this one is. I think, especially against an opponent like East Troy, I think we might see a majority of the backups come second half. It's one of those games I do believe, but Monroe is my pick in that one. Peck Argyle taking on River Ridge. Might as well take the home team in that one. This is the biggest game, though, a state championship rematch from last year. Potosi Cassville taking on Blackhawk. Potosi comes in undefeated. I think Blackhawk only has 1 blemish on the record. But I'm going to take the hometown team. I'm going to take Blackhawk Warren to get the job done over Potosi to get their get back in this one. I think that they get a little revenge. Potosi, Cassville walked all over them. There was a running back, I forget his name, for Potosi who had 4 touchdowns in the state championship game, set records. I do believe he's gone. I'm not 100% sure, but Potosi's just a good program all in all. They have state records all and throughout, but I'm going to take Blackhawk in this one. I don't know why, but might as well take the hometown team. Going opposite way though, Richland Center, I'm going to take them. They're 3-5 on the year. They're not rolling by any means, but this Breda Judah team just can't play offense right now, and the defense isn't good enough to allow them to not play offense. And so I'm going to take Richland Center in this one. But also in 25-9, we need to go undefeated to stay under 10 losses. I don't recall. You said it was possible, but was that referring to staying 10 or less or staying single digits?
Oh, I don't remember which one we talked about. I mean, obviously the goal here is to keep it in the single digits. So I think you're
Yes.
going to run the table.
That's the goal. I think my biggest concern with this week is the Potosi Cassville Blackhawk game. I think that one's probably my biggest concern. I think Peck Argyle, Brada Judah could go either way, but the other two I'm pretty confident in. So we'll see if we can have another good week. If we do go undefeated, we do touch 30 wins as well, 30 and 39. So that's also very beneficial. So we'll see how that goes. I'm excited for it. I'm here for it. And then we're into the playoffs, which will give us something fun to talk about as well here in high school football Friday Night Lights. So let's have a weekend with that. That's part of this massive football weekend. I'm super excited about football this weekend. The last 3 weeks of college football, or last 2 weeks, and now this week have been awesome with some very good matchups. And here we are now. I mean, we got some really good. The NFL is kind of settling down, settling into the groove. Another massive week of NFL football. It's just a good weekend of football. I'm all here for it. We're here to preview it with you. But let's keep on rolling into our Ripper Hoops, our newest segment. How about that? The newest segment for our podcast, Elson, is we're going to be covering some basketball. And I know neither you or I are the biggest basketball people. Personally, I have never played basketball in my life, I must admit. I've grown up on the ice playing hockey. And so I think if you saw me play basketball, that would reflect that statement. But I will say, on about a 8-foot hoop in the street, I can play. I can play with the best of them. You know what I mean? But that's about as far as it goes, and it doesn't
When you
last
say
long.
8 foot, do you mean like 8 feet off the ground or 8 feet in circumference?
8 feet off the ground, yes. So
Okay.
like something I can easily dunk on
Okay.
without having to jump very high because I can't jump very high. So
I'm in
yeah,
the same boat.
yeah, absolutely. I mean that's the fun of it. Why play on a hoop where you can't even? I don't know. Anyways, but some basketball coverage. The Milwaukee Bucks have their final preseason game taking on the Dallas Mavericks. Bucks got a big win last game. Mavericks are still looking for their first preseason dub, but final preseason game, and then we get into the regular season preseason game on TNT. A nationally televised preseason game is something else, no doubt about it. But um, we're gonna be getting into it. I never did talk about it, but I actually ended up going to Lakers Bucks that game. That was a fun one. First preseason basketball game that I've ever been to. First half was like is super entertaining. It was almost like playoff basketball. I mean, two really good teams, Bucks, Lakers, stars on both sides of the court, going back and forth. Good defense, good offense. Second half, some of the bums started to play, and then by the fourth quarter, I don't know if I knew a single player on the court. So we ended up leaving earlier than a normal game, but we were able to beat traffic and ended up being good. But I will say, Bronny, the youngster, sucks. He's very quite bad at basketball, and he was not impressive at all. It was interesting though. Every time he got the ball, the whole stadium, even though they're full of Bucks fans, whole stadium got super excited, and then he like flat out did nothing. I don't think he scored a point. There was about 5, 6, 7 minutes where he sat in the corner and never moved, never got the ball, and he just sat there. And the only reason I knew it was him because he had bright red shoes on. And so I mean, Bronny was definitely no good. But
Shouldn't
Bron,
like crisscross applesauce, right?
yeah, pretty much. I mean, he quite literally could have done that and would have been just as beneficial as he was just standing in the corner.
Give him, what is he, like 13 years old? Give him a break.
Yeah, he's a youngster. I think he's actually the same age as us. Is he 18? Maybe 19. I'm not sure.
Well, okay, to be fair, if we were on the NBA court, it probably wouldn't look good either. So
Yeah, I
same
wouldn't pass
standard.
the ball to us either. I will admit, I wouldn't pass it to us either. But yeah, Bronny just didn't get the ball for about 5 minutes. Then he decided he probably should move around a little bit and ended up getting the ball. Did nothing with it. I don't think he had a point. He did nothing really. But yeah, so there you go. That's some basketball. But Elson, a little bit NBA prediction before the season starts. We might as well do it. Give me 3 teams that you think could win the NBA championship.
I had to think about this for a little while because it feels like we have less super teams than in years past. That's at least what I'm noticing. Not as many big threes. But I arrived at the Boston Celtics, which I know that's not what people want to hear. You don't want to go with the chalky repeat champion, but they are my number one. The Denver Nuggets, because I think they've got a well rounded lineup. And then Jokic just gives you a chance almost no matter who you have around him, one of the most complete players in NBA history. And then I know they're not among the betting favorites, but the Milwaukee Bucks, if we get healthy, I think that we have one of the better big threes in the NBA easily. Some solid depth as well. I don't know how soon people forget. I think the Bucks are in it this year.
I'm gonna exemplify my basketball knowledge in this segment with these 3 teams. My number one team is the Bucks. I think the first full year with Doc Rivers is going to be beneficial. I think Doc Rivers, obviously, a very well known veteran coach in the NBA. I think he's going to be very good for the Bucks. I think a team, the Bucks were not healthy in the playoffs. Giannis did not play in the playoffs very much, and unhealthy team, especially in the playoffs, doesn't go very far. And so, like you said, I think if the Bucks get healthy, I think that's going to be super important for them. I also think that the Golden State Warriors are an opportunity. They lost Thompson, which I don't necessarily know if that was a good or a bad thing, but I'm going to say Steph Curry continues to strive. I think that they're just a good team. I'm going to take the Warriors as a
And Clay
potential
was getting
contender.
up there in age as well. He's not all the athleticism is returned, so I don't think that's a huge loss.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then the Mavs. I would say the Mavs are my second favorite team, partially because they're a Dallas's team, and I don't know why, just because of the Cowboys maybe. But I would say they're my second favorite team. I think Luka Doncic is a very, very good player. Kyrie's a very good player, and I forget, but they added someone else, I do believe.
They added Clay.
That's who it was. They
Clay
added
and
Clay
Kyrie got to step up. That's the thing. I was actually going to ask you whether you're buying into the Mavs at all, or even whether you're a Mavs fan because of Dallas. So I'll take that one.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I think Clay would be a decent addition. I don't know. Cuban sold the
Add
team
some
now,
perimeter
so
shooting.
who knows if that's good or bad? I don't know. I like the Mavs, so I'm gonna take the Mavs, and I like the Warrior. Or I don't really like the Warriors. My cousin, massive Warriors fan. I'm a Steph Curry guy. He's an Under Armour athlete. I'm a big Under Armour guy. I think I don't have many obligations against the Warriors, and I think the Bucks. I mean, it's hard to take when your favorite team is pretty good. It's hard to not say they're gonna not win the championship. You got to pick them. So, like I said,
I
I'm gonna
think
give
they're
it to the Mavs.
underrated too. I think they would be a good team to bet on.
Yeah, I would agree. But there you go. There's our three teams that we think could win the NBA championship this year. So we'll see. We'll have to check back up and see if our predictions are correct. We'll see.
Shout out Sixers. They got to stay healthy too with Paul George and Joel Embiid. They're kind of the same situation as the Bucks.
Yeah, but no one likes the Philadelphia team. They don't
Well,
have a
no,
chance.
no, I agree.
Yeah, I mean they don't have a chance. But
I hope they all stay.
Joel Embiid said he's never playing in a back-to-back game. Like, man, you're in the NBA. I don't think you're getting paid millions of dollars. You don't get the right to say that. I mean, come on.
Well,
Like,
okay, when you're that tall and muscular, though, everything kind of just like stops working after age 25. So
oh well,
cut him
you
some
know what?
slack.
I'm just sick of that. Joel Embiid's a tool, in my opinion. Anybody who plays for a Philadelphia sports team or coaches, shout out Nick Sirianni. None of them are very intelligent. None of them are very good at sports. Their most respected one is Jason Kelsey. Shout out Jason Kelsey. But uh, other than that, I don't. Philadelphia is just a bad town. There's no sense of visiting there. Just take it from me. There's no sense. So
Don't disagree.
there you go. Let's talk college football. I think that's what we want to talk about. Let's start out with my top 25. Elson, thoughts?
All right, let's see what we got here. All right, so Texas at number one. I got to agree. Even after the big Oregon win, I think Texas is still the best team in the country. Missouri still should not be ranked. I love the Boise State love, sitting at 5-1. Among the
You
best
think
teams in the
Missouri shouldn't be ranked at all?
I don't know if I'd go that far. I would
Really?
say low 20s. They haven't proven a lot. I like that you got Indiana in the top 25 now. I think they've earned it. And Army and Navy, there we go. They deserve
They're
it.
in. They're in. Yeah, let me just clear the air on a couple of decisions that I made. I think Oregon, they had a nice win. I obviously over Ohio State. That was
Huge
a
win.
big time game. But Texas also had a huge win in the Red River rivalry over Oklahoma. And so, with that being said, we kind of talked about this last week. Elson is, if you asked me, is this Oregon Ohio State game for the best team in the country? And I said, depends on how Texas wins. If it's a close game, they don't look super good, but they pull out the win, it could be. But Texas dominated Oklahoma in this game. Quinn Ewers wasn't 100% sharp, but the rest of the team was there. Good defense. I think Texas undoubtedly is the best team in the country. Oregon, they had a really big win. They've got now 3 quality wins for me. And so does Penn State as well. Those are a couple undefeated teams that are there for me. Alabama, I think, has a pretty good record or resume, I should say, and I think that they're a little bit better than Miami. I don't have any quality wins for Miami. And they've had some close games. I know that Virginia Tech game was good.
They're the
Uh,
cardiac Canes this year. They needed a 25-point comeback to beat Cal.
yeah, I mean, they haven't had super quality wins in my opinion. Nothing that gives them any credit for me. So I'm gonna say that they are going to sit at 5. Then BYU, Iowa State move up into the top 7. But teams like obviously Ohio State dropped a little bit of movement, and then Oregon or Tennessee and Georgia fell for me. This was a little bit of movement where I just looked at the resumes and I said Ohio State. I kind of categorized them. You got LSU, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Georgia, Tennessee, and then the list kind of goes on. But let's just categorize them right there. And I guess you could throw Missouri into that mix too. But looking at those 5-1 teams and looking at the quality opponent and obviously who they lost to me, Ohio State's the best team. They lost to Oregon, second best team in the country. They got 2 quality wins. Other teams with 2 quality wins: Notre Dame, Texas A&M. Notre Dame obviously beat Texas A&M, so they're going to be higher. So there's that. And then Georgia, only 1 quality win for Georgia, and that came against Clemson early in the year. Tennessee only has 1 against Oklahoma, which is proving as the year goes on isn't very important, very impressive. Um, so just kind of looking at some of those things, that's how that goes. Boise State comes in at ranked 15, and they were not ranked in the week before. I think that they beat Washington State already. Washington State's not ranked in the AP poll, but I think Washington State's a very good football team. Kansas State with a nice win over Colorado. Clemson goes down a little bit for me. It's just that kind of the whole 5-1 strength of opponents. But Clemson's like I think up into the top 10 in AP polls. They'll get there, I'm sure. And then Navy and Army. Navy only has 5 wins this year, but they've got a quality win for me against Memphis. Army hasn't got that yet, so they get the nod. Ole Miss down quite a bit. They're gonna have to win out, as Jackson Dart said. And then Indiana finally cracks the top 25. They're 6-0. One thing I did want to mention though, Olsen, and I thought this was an interesting point. Notable teams that are not ranked in my top 25. Michigan, they're the first team out. They're 4-2. I have Oklahoma ranked 35th in my rankings. They fell a lot. They're ranked 4-2. Utah ranked at 36. They're 4-2, and then USC, they're 3-3. They probably could be two. They should be 2-4. I got them ranked 48th in the teams that I'm looking at. But some notable things, excluding USC. I think USC has an external problem, but Michigan, Oklahoma, Utah, those 3 teams, something in common with them and all teams that have fallen quite a bit this year is quarterback issues. All 3 of those teams came rising. He's got injury issues. He came back. They still got beat. Oklahoma and Michigan obviously have started multiple quarterbacks, trying to figure out which guy's their guy. A lot of people are saying Jack Tuttle for Michigan is the guy. He's going to be the best guy they've started so far. We'll see. I got to see it first, but that's the common denominator with all of these teams is the inconsistent quarterback play, and as a result, all of those 3 teams have fallen quite a bit out of the top 25. So I kind of thought that was an interesting tidbit right there of just how important consistent quarterback play is, even if it's not high level. Just the consistency of being able to be manageable, manage the game to the best of your abilities. I think that's just super important. I mean, there's teams like Indiana, Boise State. Boise State's got a pretty good quarterback, but Indiana, obviously, or Ole Miss, Navy, even Illinois, Pitt. Some of these schools, they don't have like I look at those teams that I can't think of the name of their starting quarterback, but they've got the job done. They're winning games. That's more important. If you throw 3 interceptions a game, but your team wins, I think you're gonna be okay. Obviously, you got some things to figure out, but that's one of the no tidbits there that I realized when I was making my top 25, and they all have a common denominator in the inconsistent quarterback play.
I may not necessarily agree with where you have Ohio State or Georgia versus BYU, but I think you crushed it with the teams outside the top 25. I think those 4 or 5 teams that you hit on, they really do all have external problems, especially with Michigan that just really feel like they cap how far they can go. So I like those takes.
What's wrong with USC? I mean, they're a team. They should be 2-4. Wisconsin handed them that win, but they got Miller Moss, who I mean was in the Heisman conversation at some point. Lincoln Riley, who I think's a really good coach, but you typically when you see a team that is this talented not be successful, you point your fingers at the head coach. But what's their deal? Why are they just struggling?
I mean, I think it's a combination of young quarterback and then more importantly, playing behind an offensive line that doesn't protect them very well. So constantly on the move, constantly developing bad tendencies just makes things a lot tougher. And then you mentioned they're 3-3. They could be 2-4. They could probably be 5-1 as well. They've had a lot of games land on the wrong side of the coin flip, and when you just land on the wrong side every time, starts to get to you a little bit.
Even with Caleb Williams, they struggled and they lost a couple disappointing games. And so I don't know, maybe it's just a USC thing. I don't know, but it's just kind of just it's just an interesting thing that they've struggled that poorly so far this year. But there
They
you
have
go.
not adapted well to Big Ten physicality.
No, they'll get there. And a lot of people, I mean, I thought they were going to beat Penn State this week, but they weren't. And they've had a tough schedule. I mean, Penn State coming into town. I forget who else they've had. They've beaten LSU and Wisconsin. I consider a quality win. So a couple wins there. They've lost to Michigan and Penn State now, and it just continues to get hard as they continue on through their Big Ten play. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. How can Lincoln Riley, Miller Moss? Miller Moss is a young player, so it'll be interesting to see how those guys continue. Let's keep her moving. Big game preview here in college football. We talked about it. It's going to be a fun week, no doubt about it. We'll start with the local team, the Badgers, on the road, quite literally playing on Lake Michigan, taking on Northwestern. A Northwestern team comes in 500, new coaching staff. Another opportunity, though, for the Badgers to get another blowout win.
Do it again. And you know what? I want to see him keep feeding Tawi Walker, use the shotgun run game to get him outside the tackles. And I like what we're seeing from Braden Locke. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I think you just feed Tawi, earn time of possession in this game, limit what this Northwestern offense, which isn't very strong, can do. And if you're going to get Locke going, do it off of play action. I think this one should be a multi-score win.
That game last week against Rutgers was very, very impressive. I thought we took a Rutgers team and deflated their balloon. I think just undoubtedly the Wisconsin defense looked like the Wisconsin defense. The Wisconsin offense had glimpses of that identity that we're all looking for with running the ball with Tawi. There was a moment though, 4th and goal, I think, from the 1 yard line where he lined up in shotgun and ran it. I cringed. I cringed at it. I thought I knew the result was going to happen. They ended up scoring on it, so I was happy. But I still can't get over the fact that we're lining up in goal or in gun in a goal-to-goal play on 4th down or 4th and 1, and usually it doesn't go well for us. And against a really good team, Rutgers is a good team. They're a team a lot of people thought should be ranked at a point this year, and
well, and their line play is good too. That's why it was so awesome to see the offensive line just blocking their asses off like we're used to.
Yeah, a very, very good game for both the Wisconsin defense and the Wisconsin offense. I think this was one of those games where you could look back and say Phil Longo called a good game. That feels good as a Wisconsin fan, being able to, because it's a lot. Everyone's kind of turned their back on Phil Longo this year. I feel even last year, and batters they're starting to kind of figure out a little bit, which seems odd because Braden Locke. I mean, Braden Locke has the most experience in this offense and on the team right now. Tyler Van Dyke obviously he's played a lot of football, but Braden Locke's been in this offense two years now, and so he knows what to do in the situations in that Phil Longo presents. I think this is a Wisconsin offense that has an opportunity to put up 40 plus again against an iffy Northwestern team, and then they can continue to roll into Penn State primetime at Camp Randall Stadium. I'm pumped for this done. I think Wisconsin is going to come into that game rolling. That's going to be an elite atmosphere at Camp Randall primetime Halloween weekend. Watch out, Nittany Lions. Watch out.
Gets me excited. And hey, you mentioned that we ran shotgun on like a 4th and goal. We scored a touchdown out of I formation, I believe. So I like it. I like what
we're getting there. We're getting there. We got to keep The thing that people don't quite understand about the gun situation is when you're in gun and you have multiple receivers split out, it spreads the defense out, which opens up a running lanes through the middle. So in ways it can work. When you take three wide receivers, split them out wide, a team goes into a different type of defense, gonna try and maybe contend against the pass because that's the formation you're in. Maybe you keep a tight end in or not, and you just got. I mean, the box is very empty, and so when you do that, that does open some holes up. But it seemed like the Badgers maybe had a receiver or two split out wide, and it's heavy tight ends in the gun formation. Everyone knew 4th and goal from the 1 yard line, they're going to run the ball. There's just specific situations where you just got to line up in your heavy package and just pound the ball and do it how Wisconsin's done it for so many years. But there is a benefit to lining up, spreading the defense out, and running the ball out of gun. And I think that we see that early games, and that's how Tyree Walker has been very successful so far this year. Let's
That's what I
continue
want to see
rolling.
against Northwestern. Got ahead
Yeah, we
early and
want to
then
see it
the
we want to
offense.
see it continue happening. 100%. That's 100% the goal. Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish, my Fighting Irish, come in rolling. And Riley Leonard, that offense is starting to click. They go on the road against a good Georgia Tech team. This game is played at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Georgia Tech comes into the game 5-2. Notre Dame 5-1. Elson, confidence in Riley Leonard in this one?
I do have confidence in Riley Leonard. I would still put Notre Dame on upset alert because I think Georgia Tech is a sneaky good football team. But this is a really bad Georgia Tech secondary with a mediocre pass rush. Riley Leonard's not going to be under a lot of pressure. He's going to be able to get free looks downfield, could be looking at multiple explosive touchdowns, and that just makes life much harder if you're Georgia Tech.
Miami on the road against Louisville. I personally think this is an upset alert game for the Hurricanes. What do you thought here?
Borderline, because Miami, they've been a little shaky this year. I think after needing two comebacks to beat unranked teams, the focus might be improved. Miami's defensive line or Louisville's defensive line needs to step up and get pressure on Cam Ward. I think that is their avenue back into this game, but ultimately, I think Miami just has too much firepower. I've got Miami by 10.
There you go. Big Ten game, old Big Ten matchup, I guess you could say. But Nebraska taking on Indiana. Indiana comes in rolling undefeated. Nebraska with that one blemish to Illinois, I do believe. But this is gonna be a big game. I think either one of these teams can prevail in this one.
I got to agree. This was the hardest game that we're covering today for me to call. I think it's going to be Indiana's first real test because if I'm remembering correctly, they haven't really played anyone. But the bad teams they have played, they've sent them right back out of the stadium, just dominant wins. Curtis Rourke, he's an NFL draft prospect now. That's Indiana's quarterback. He's got this offense clicking. They just look so sharp. However, he's had a lot of time in the pocket, and Nebraska's defensive line knows how to get home, so that's going to be a test on the offensive side. Dylan Raiola, the underclassman quarterback for Nebraska, he's primed for a really good performance. This could be a fun, high-scoring affair. I've got Indiana by 1, but they might not be walking out of here undefeated.
One of the big games coming up on Saturday, Alabama, Tennessee, a game that a lot of people consider maybe developed into a rivalry. The Tide have won 9 of 10 coming into this game 2 years ago. Tennessee did get the best of Alabama. What are we thinking in this one? Both teams coming 5-1.
So I do think that Alabama walks out 10 of 11 in the series, but both these teams just need to get it together, kind of playing down over the last couple weeks, it feels like. The swing factor for me is Nico Iamaleava, Tennessee's underclassman quarterback, started the year very hot. He has been quite bad the last 2 to 3 weeks. Like, there's not good, and then there is one of the worst passers in the country when you're not running play action and when you're not coming under pressure. He's just making way too many mistakes. Run games travel. Bama knows how to run the ball. That's why I have faith in Alabama. I'm picking them by a touchdown.
Yeah, I think Alabama's definitely got the advantage in this one. Michigan taking on Illinois. A couple teams, low 25s ranked. Just barely making the cut into that top 25. Michigan's got their third quarterback of the year starting, Jack Tuttle, veteran guy. Illinois is a team that's been rolling, obviously having a very good year. What are we thinking in this one?
First of all, I just got to shout out Jack Tuttle. I want to say is he a 7th or an 8th year player? he's up there with Cam Rising in terms of
Yeah.
experience. So you like to have that, but I almost don't understand benching Alex Orji here because I don't think their passing attack under Tuttle is going to be good. He's played about a half with the Wolverines this season, and that looked ugly. And the thing about Illinois is their weakness is run defense. So why not just lean into your two really good running backs and get Orji involved in the option game? I don't know, but ultimately, what I think is going to get it done for the Wolverines is their defensive line. It's quite arguably the best in the country. Illinois has been all right in pass protection, but their quarterback, Luke Altmaier, very good player, needs a clean pocket, has a lot of trouble when he's under pressure, and so that's why I've got Michigan by 8.
Yeah, this is another fun one. The original Big Ten. We'll see how this one ends up. And then the nightcap game. I don't know if it is a nightcap game. I do believe it's prime time. But the biggest
Should
game
be.
of the weekend, College game day on the road. There, Georgia comes in. They're taking on Texas in Austin. Georgia, obviously, the one loss to Alabama, but Texas comes in with a big game over Oklahoma. Seemed like they came out relatively unscathed. What are we thinking in this one?
I want to get cute and pick the Georgia upset, but I just don't see it, man. This Texas team looks like the best team in the country. They look the part. You mentioned how Quinn Ewers didn't have his sharpest performance against Oklahoma, who was ranked in that game, and it didn't matter. They still won in a blowout. I think that they're a cut above the rest of college football, and Georgia's been messing around with the teams they're playing a little too much. I don't think they have the explosives. I don't think this team is as good as they've been in years past. I've got Texas.
Georgia comes into this game underdogs for the first time in the last 50 games that they've played. And Georgia is still coached by Kirby Smart, who's phenomenal. And this is still the Georgia Bulldogs team that we know. I think this is a game of good teams strive without the spotlight. This is a game where Georgia's kind of fallen out. Obviously, in my power rankings, they've fallen to 13 or 12. Um, this is a game. Georgia's the underdog. This is a game on the road that Georgia. I think Georgia's like what 5 in the AP poll maybe, but this is a game where Georgia is just they're not the spotlight. There's not the pressure's not on them. The the pressure's on Texas. It's home game primetime college game day. They're having a phenomenal year. Georgia's in town, but Georgia. This is just a game for Georgia to just to come into town and to win. Carson Beck is a good quarterback. Kirby Smart, like I mentioned, is one of the best coaches in the country. Georgia still has Georgia players. This is one where I can see Georgia coming in and making it interesting. This is going to be an interesting game. I think it's hard to call it game of the year after the two games that we've seen between Bama, Georgia, and Oregon, Ohio State. But this one's going to be right up there. This is an underrated game. I think it's not the 1v2 or the 2v3 game. It's the 1v5 in the AP poll. This is going to be a fun one. I think Georgia is sneaky, a team that you can win, and maybe I am getting too cute, like you said, though, Elson. But I like Georgia in this game. I think I've kind of talked about this all year long. The importance after tough games, the week after a tough game can be almost harder than the week before trying to prepare about trying to schedule maybe your bye week after a big game. They had a big game. Red River rivalry games are normally tough, high scoring, gritty games. This game, Texas dominated in. Like I said, it seemed like they came out relatively unscathed. That's the determining factor for me. Is Texas healthy? Is Texas um, energized? I guess are they coming into this game flying by the seat of their pants because they are um, they're vulnerable. That's going to be the key factor for me. If they're healthy, which in a blowout win, I would imagine they're in good shape coming into this game. But if they are, I think Texas runs away with it. If not, watch out for the Bulldogs.
I don't hate that take at all because, like you mentioned, Georgia has the coach you can win with. Georgia has the quarterback you can win with. Carson Beck has had some really great performances as of late, kind of pulling it together down this stretch. And Texas, they got to be ready to put the foot down on Georgia because this is a mature team that will come in and they will beat you on the road if you play around too much. So I have to agree.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun one. I'm super excited for it. Saturday, big slate of college football games. We're here for it. We'll talk about it Monday. on our Monday recap. Let's get into our daily draft, Olsen. How about this? This is going to be a perfect segue for us into the MLB playoffs update. But let's just say we got a nice little win. When I checked the standings, it was 100%. I don't know if it still is, but I dominated that one,
Were
and
you
so
the one vote? Be real
I
with me.
I don't know. I didn't check the number of votes, and so we'll see. But I never checked the number of votes, so it could have been. I could have been.
You don't
Um,
have to pay people to vote in your favor, Ethan. Like
I
it's all
don't. I
right.
don't pay
It's not
people. I'm a
this
college
serious.
kid. I'm complaining about $1.50 for laundry, Elson. I'm not paying anybody to win me votes in the daily draft. But this is an opportunity for you to get your revenge. We're going to be drafting the best MLB stadiums. I believe we had done this category in the past. I think it was a long time ago, back when we were only on Spotify. But Elson, do you have that trusty coin with you?
Let me grab one. I have many trusty coins with
He has
me.
multiple. How about that?
It's fun fact. All the change I find on the ground, I put it in a cup, and someday I will invest it in the stock market, more or less, just because I want to prove a point. I think I made a bet with someone sometime, so that's right up there on the dresser. Heads or tails?
I'm going to go with heads.
All right, this is. I'm not going to catch this, just like I said last time. It's going to
It's
fly
always a
everywhere.
warning statement.
All right, we'll take that. It is heads.
Okay, so I get the first pick, which I think happened last time, and it ended up working out for me. But I don't necessarily know where I want to go here with this one. I wrote down eight stadiums, the eight best stadiums. I don't know. I don't know if I have a number one. I think I'm gonna go with the most historic one. This is a stadium where I feel like you just turn it on. You turn the game on if it's being played there. I'm gonna take Fenway Park.
I like it. I like it. That was very high up on my list. Is this a little patronizing? Yes. I got to take AmFam in Milwaukee. You got to have it. And then with my pick, it's between two. I'm going to take Camden Yards, Orioles Park in
Camden
Baltimore.
Yards. Okay,
Historic field.
there you go. So I got two picks myself. I'm gonna take Dodger Stadium. Obviously, a big hater of the Dodgers, but talk about a historic stadium and an iconic city. I'm gonna take Dodger Stadium with my second pick. Then I go into question. There's a couple more historic stadiums on the board, I would say, but a stadium that I personally fell in love with, and um, I when I was looking up, like I, I looked up the best MLB stadiums, and I was just scrolling through images, and the majority of the images featured this stadium, and which I think is intriguing. I'm gonna go with PNC Park in Pittsburgh. I think the skyline makes it.
That is an awesome park. That was going to be my next pick. So I like that a lot. It is just a beautiful, modern looking park. For my two closing it out, I'm going to go Coors Field. It's hard to beat Coors, pretty iconic. And then we'll go Oracle Park in San Francisco. I think that's another really nice looking ballpark.
Yeah, I would agree. I think those are both good picks. So I got the board's open for me. I can go a couple of historic stadiums like I talked about: Yankee Stadium, Wrigley Field, both stadiums on the board. Minute Maid Park, Lone Depot, I believe Lone Depot Stadium, or I don't think they call it park. I think it's
Take the Trop, coward. You want Tropicana.
no. I'm not taking. I don't think I'm taking Tropicana. Bush Stadium is a stadium that's the arch makes it. But I think I'm gonna go Wrigley Field. I think that's a stadium that I've been to a couple times now. It's iconic. I will say I was actually there this past summer for a concert. Shout out Luke Bryan, Bailey Zimmerman. I was there, and obviously I was pretty young when I was there for the first time for a Brewers Cubs game. Took the train in, did the whole thing, but I don't remember a lot. But they've really that the area around that stadium is really developed. They've got a lot of entertainment area, similar to a place like the Deer District in Milwaukee. Very difficult to get around walking and driving. Obviously, a big city like Chicago. But Wrigley Field, I think, is a place that I've personally been. I think I got to take it.
And here I thought you were going to be loyal to your Brewers.
Well, you took the Brewer Stadium. I mean,
True.
I
I was going to ask before we made our picks what the odds that Wrigley gets picked were because it wasn't even on my list.
Really. I American Family Field was the first stadium that I wrote down. Obviously, it's one of the best in the league. I took Fenway. I figured I would take my chances with American Family Field being there, but you tend to be the guy that picks the local team. You took Wisconsin, Minnesota last week, so you tend to try and hit the market a little
And I
bit,
still don't win.
and it still doesn't work out for you. So when will you learn? Is the big question.
Good
Who
question.
knows? Who knows?
Are you familiar with
But
the Polo Grounds? Would those be a doable pick for this?
the Polo Grounds. I don't know.
Maybe an MLB The Show. You've seen it. They're
Yes, I think
the
I've seen it. What?
ridiculous dimensions.
Yes, I feel like it would be current stadiums.
Okay, okay.
I feel like that would be the preface. I think that would be the important part. I don't know. Who knows? There you go. Let's get into some MLB. It's a perfect segue. Playoffs are continuing to keep her going. I tend to like just to pull up ESPN and give a little bit of a live update. I do believe there is one game. I don't think it's started yet, but there is one game tonight. I do believe. It is 7 o'clock. Dodgers Mets series tied at 1 apiece. Yankees up 2-0 over the Guardians. They play. Both teams play tomorrow night, Game 3 and Game 4. Elson, numbers are up right now for the MLB playoffs. I've had a good time following it along. I think this has been a good year for MLB playoffs. What are your thoughts so far?
I agree. We saw some very good games in the series before this. Dodgers Mets is a good series. Guardians Yankees has been a little lopsided. I think we expected it to be a little lopsided. I'm just hoping that Mets Dodgers produces a team capable of beating the Yankees. Personally, I think it would be a fun storyline if the Mets finally got their act together, made this deep postseason run, and took home the pennant. I would enjoy that. I just don't want the Yankees to win this one.
According to history, the team that beats the Brewers makes the World Series. So, with that being said, the Mets should indeed make the World Series. It would be fun to see a Mets versus Yankees World Series, but obviously, I agree with you. I think the Guardians would be a fun team to watch in the. They're a small market team.
It would be fun to see them make it. I just don't think they will.
Yeah, I mean the Yankees are just such a good team. It's hard to. I mean, I think the majority of the MLB does not want to see Yankees Dodgers. I think that's chalk essentially,
Yeah.
and we like to see a little bit of change. I think a Mets Guardians would be pretty fun to watch. Although we have had a couple years now. What was it, Diamondbacks and Rangers last year? A couple years now with some non powerhouse teams making it.
You love to see that. That really does make the sport more entertaining. You know, as Brewers fans, we're well acquainted with how hard it is to win as a small market and the Yankees dynasties all over the East Coast. So I like this development. It would be nice to see Mets Guardians. Ultimately, though, if it takes the Dodgers to stop the Yankees from winning, hey, at least Shohei gets to win something.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, especially in the MLB where there's no salary cap and it's pay to win. It's nice to see some of those smaller market teams be able to do it compared to the NFL where every team's got a salary cap. You know what I mean? It's just a little bit of a different setup there financially for the league. But we'll see. We'll continue to follow along all the way through the World Series. But let's get into there's that for you. I forgot to put that up. I'm my producer skills today have not been on point. I've been making a couple mistakes here and there, but you know what? It is what it is. Let's get into fantasy football. Quick update. Power rankings. I got a nice little bounce back win in the 16-man. 4-2 so far. Elson, how you feeling about your team?
4-0 in the last 4 games. A little bit of a rough start, but we're pulling it together at the right time. I don't think we're ever going to lose another game again.
There you go. You're currently started second, and you're currently second. You're the one of the two teams that hasn't moved in these unbiased rankings.
I only plan on moving one spot for the rest of the year. So
yeah, that's a good take. I think Tucker's he's a funny one, falling 13 spots, and he was one of the trash talkers coming into the year. Minutes sure paid off well for him.
Had it coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Karma's a real thing, and yeah, but I think my team's in good shape. I'm happy with where I'm at. I think my quarterback situation, I have Bo Nix and Andy Dalton to choose from. Currently, the last 2 weeks, I've started Bo Nix, and I've gotten 20 points at least out of him. So Bo Nix has been playing well for me. Look forward to continuing to start him. He's got a Thursday night game, so that's always a little bit of a concern. You got if your quarterback plays Thursday night, you have a close second option, and you sit there and Thursday night he drops 10 points, and you guys sit there and look at that all weekend long.
Just
That's always
wallow
a
in it.
yeah, it's just a partially concerning
Look at what
situation.
I've done.
Yep, absolutely. But there's a little power rankings for you. Let's get into our Sunday picks, Elson. Uh, Another good week in the NFL. I think if my math is correct, I gained 3 points in the standings, and you gained none. You stayed right there at 18. Um, so we'll see if we'll see if either one of us can gain a little bit more. Week one though, and we gained a lot of points. I think it was like 15-10 or something in favor of you, I believe. And you've gained 3 points since then,
It's
and
been
I've gained.
rough.
It's been
Which I
crazy.
will say, it's funny because what were my Instagram predictions? I think I was 12-2
Yeah,
on Instagram.
he's
I just
locked in on
messed around with
Houston.
the underdogs too much on the show.
Yeah, the
It was a
underdogs
chalky
definitely do
week.
pose an additional thought through that, and I feel like it's fun. It's a fun game. But let's get started. We'll start Thursday night football. Broncos taking on the Saints. The notable piece on this one: two rookie quarterbacks going at it. Spencer Rattler for the Saints. He didn't do horrible in his first start, but taking on the Broncos. Austin, what do we think in this one?
I didn't hate what I saw from Spencer Rattler. And he's an experienced quarterback, really matured from his Oklahoma days. He looked, again, kind of better than I was expecting. Made some nice throws, but he was very erratic. Made some poor decisions, didn't look super comfortable in the pocket. And he's going up against Vance Joseph in a Broncos defense that's been excellent. They dropped the blitz about as well as maybe anyone other than the Vikings. And it's just hard for me to bet on a rookie quarterback who's had issues against the blitz to go out there and win on Thursday night. So I'm going to take the Broncos.
Broncos in this one. I'm also going to take the Broncos. I think this is a team that's kind of been rolling recently. A good defense taking on a young rookie quarterback. I think Bo Nix continues to get better. He's also a veteran guy. He played a lot of football. I think this is a game, even though they're on the road, I think the Saints continue to struggle. Chris Olave's out in this one as well. Um, I'm gonna take the Broncos in this one with you as well. Houston taking on the Packers. It's a 12 p.m. kick. We kind of talked about it. Feeds right into what the Packers want. Crappy weather, but those Packers are debuting those all white helmets. It's a winter weather warning or something like that in Green Bay this weekend. But Green Bay is going to be looking, playing, feeling good, taking on Houston.
I think this one's going to be an excellent game. This was borderline my toughest call that I've made so far. I work on my Instagram picks throughout the week. As for the Packers, they're going to want to establish the run game, and I think they're going to be able to do that against the Texans. However, if Jordan Love goes out and plays the way he did last week against the Cardinals, which, it's the Cardinals, bad defense, got to take that with a grain of salt, but he got hot in the back half last year. If we see that version of Jordan Love, I think the Texans are going to have a really hard time keeping up, but you look at what the Texans can do offensively. Here's kind of an interesting fact. The Packers defense, I think, is leading the league with 17 turnovers forced. So that's great. If I remember correctly, 8 of them are fumble recoveries. I don't know what to make of that. And CJ Stroud is not a quarterback that turns the ball over. I think they're going to be in this game too. So I'm going to pick the Packers to win, but I'm going to take the Texans as my underdog selection for this one.
There you go. I'm gonna take Green Bay. It's hard for me to bet against those icy helmets. I'm a huge fan of the all white uniforms. Green Bay, they
I
looked
feel like
good
I'm
last
tempting
week.
fate by betting against the Packers here, especially because I
Yeah,
think they're going to win.
yeah, exactly. But like I do respect your pick though. Houston's a tough team to, especially when they're underdogs. It's tough to pass up on them. I think Green Bay's a team. They're kind of rolling their home game, 12 p.m. kick. It fits right into what they want to do. It will be a touch warmer. Sun's going to be out. I think they're just a good team. I think they're a vulnerable team on the road. But I'm going to take Green Bay in this game. I'm going to take them as the favorite. So 2 favorite picks for me so far, but we'll see how that goes. Detroit taking on the undefeated Vikings. Vikings favored by 2.5. Elson, is this the game that the Vikings drop for the first time?
I think it is. I'm going to pick the Lions both to win, and obviously I'll take them as an underdog. I think that they're going to go out there And they're not going to do what they did to the Cowboys, but they are going to hit the Vikings hard on the ground. I think that having Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to force the Vikings into a lot of light boxes. The Lions are going to get the run game going. And as for the Vikings, this is a very good Lions secondary. Rookie Terrion Arnold making a big impact. Kirby Joseph has been one of the best safeties in the league.
Brian
And
Branch.
Arnold, Brian Branch is tearing things up from the slot in the box. And then Sam Darnold, he's been looking shakier and shakier every week. So I think it's going to be close. Ben Johnson versus Brian Flores, offensive coordinator versus defensive coordinator. It's just going to be a treat to watch. It could go either way.
Get your popcorn.
I got to side with Detroit.
I think so too. If there's one team to give Minnesota their first loss of the year, it's going to be Dan Campbell's Lions. This is a gritty team. One of those games where they kind of come out unscathed and a blowout win. The backups got some time, a little bit of rest for the starters.
They lose Aiden Hutchinson, though.
They lost Hutchinson. That's disappointing, absolutely.
Brutal. But he was having like an excellent season, so that really sucks. But
this always seems to happen that way too, which is very disappointing. Shout out Aiden Hutchinson. He's a heck of a player. But it's good to see that he's doing well post-surgery and that he's got a chance to make a comeback because one of those injuries could just totally end a career. And obviously the whole world of the NFL hopes that his injury doesn't hinder his career and he's able to get back to the level of play because, man, he was having a lights-out season this year so far.
He was just wrecking game plans all year long.
Absolutely. But I think that the Lions get the job done here. I like them as an underdog selection. We saw what they did against my Cowboys last week. Hard to go against that. Give me the Lions as the underdogs as well. Kansas City is underdogs. I've learned to never bet against Patrick Mahomes. They're taking on San Francisco, coming off a nice win. San Francisco favored by a point and a half. Who are you taking here?
I went back and forth, and I was going to do the really cowardly thing. The Chiefs are favored by a point and a half, and my official pick was going to be the 49ers to win by 1, so the Chiefs cover. But you know what? I'm going to side with Kansas City because we know they don't really have the offensive playmakers. It's just what they've done, though, is they come out with all these tight ends, and they lean into a really good interior offensive line with Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, and they run the ball. And Kareem Hunt is still a perfectly good back. The 49ers are beat up on the interior. I think they can move the ball that way. As for the 49ers, Brock Purdy's been awesome, just eluding pressure, running around, getting first downs with his legs. But Steve Spagnuolo knows how to eat that stuff up. He turns the ball over once or twice. That could be lights out for the Niners. So this is another game that feels like it could go either way. I'm going to go with the underdog Chiefs. Don't bet against Patrick Mahomes as an underdog.
This is another one of those games. Like I said earlier, it's just like I've learned to never bet against Patrick Mahomes. And this is one that I'm going to take Patrick Mahomes in a big game situation. And just another situation, though, where if there was a team to hand the Chiefs their first loss, it would be the 49ers.
Yes, it would be.
And so this is a tough one, no doubt about it. I'm gonna bite, and I'm going to take the points as underdogs for the Chiefs. And I'm going to say the Chiefs get this one as another underdog selection. I can't help but notice, though, Austin, 3 straight underdog selections trying to close that gap.
Swing for the fences.
It's interesting perspective and choice there. But Ravens favored by 3.5 on the road, taking on a fire hot Tampa Bay Buccaneers team.
This is going to be a fun offensive showdown. The Ravens are so unique because they run more than any team in the NFL, and it just works because they will beat you up with Derrick Henry. And then they lean into the pass game, and Lamar Jackson is playing like an MVP candidate. This is a Bucs team that doesn't defend the run very well. They constantly have their heavy personnel on the field, putting a bunch of guys in the box, and it just doesn't matter. They don't have the dudes. I think the Ravens are going to do whatever they want. I think Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are going to get theirs. I mean, they've been excellent all season long. A fun stat is that Chris Godwin has like 500 yards and Mike Evans has like 350. And then the next best wide receiver on the Bucs is Darius Slayton with like 86. So that's a very fun offense to watch. I just don't think they can outpace Baltimore.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to take Baltimore too. As hot as Tampa Bay has been, they've been putting 50 up in games. Obviously, Todd Bowles' defense is going to be very good. I'm just going to have to stick with the Baltimore Ravens. They have not lost since their 0-2 start. I mean, this is just a game where I think Lamar and Derrick Henry, the addition of Derrick Henry comes into play. I like this one a lot. Give me the Ravens as well. So I'll send 3 underdog selections. I'm taking 2. common team being the Detroit Lions and Kansas City Chiefs in this one. But there's our Sunday picks for this one. Elson trying to close that gap. I'm proud to be up by 15 in this one. So there you go. Those are Sunday picks. How about that? That's all we got. Good episode today, Elson. I'm always thrilled to join you and talk some sports as always. Thanks for joining me. Episode 48. Still working on that little something special for episode 50. So we'll figure out what we're doing there. But that would technically be a week from today. We'll see. But I'm Ethan Rosehill. That's Elson Gratz. Episode 48 of the Ripper Podcast. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you Monday. Enjoy the sports weekend. Enjoy everything. It's a massive weekend of football. That's the sport we all love. We'll